This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Our highest purpose for each of us is to realize our fullest potential by living our most authentic life, unapologetically, in color, and out loud. But we all face barriers between imagining what that life looks like and then actually living it. Those barriers come in all shapes and sizes. Some are mere hurdles, while others are brick walls. These are the boxes we find ourselves in. We started building them at different times and for different reasons. We had different tools at our disposal. The world can be an overwhelming and unpredictable place, and we use these coping mechanisms and mental constructs to deal with and make sense of it all. Some are healthy, and some are destructive. Just as each person's journey is unique, so are the boxes we live in. Valeria Teles interviews Wendy Tamis Robbins, the author of The Box, An Invitation to Freedom from Anxiety. Wendy Tamis Robbins is a lawyer by day, writer by night, and a professional panic attacker. Despite near-crippling anxiety, she worked her way through Dartmouth College and law school before, in her 30s, she set her mind to overcoming the anxiety and panic attacks that increasingly limited her life. For the past 20 years, she has worked in corporate finance, creating and preserving affordable housing and lending to underserved communities. Meet Wendy at wendytamisrobbins.com. Here is the interview with Wendy Tamis Robbins.
In your own words, who is Wendy Tamis Robbins?
Wendy Tamis Robbins is a survivor and a seeker.
With that answer, seeker, I have heard that before. Of course, some of my guests, they say that. And I usually ask, what are you seeking?
Yeah, I think I'm always seeking. For so long, I was, seeking calm and peace and seeking it externally. Yeah. And then, as I went through that journey, realized that it was really what I was seeking was always within me. So Right. It was really a journey to come back home. Right. And I think now that I've found that, there's this universe inside of all of us Right. that is just never ending. So continuing to peel back the layers and seek deeper peace and more connection and a deeper understanding of really where, my place in the universe, I guess.
What is spirituality to you, Wendy? What is to be spiritual? And freedom, how would you describe what it feels to be free? What is freedom to you?
I feel like freedom feels like the opposite of the shackles of whether it's mental illness or cultural things that, culturally we are caged in, or whether it's, I grew up Catholic and you were just mentioning what's spirituality to you, releasing yourself from all of those mental constructs Right. that we are indoctrinated from a very young age, Right. whether it's around gender or race or all of it. So it's almost like a deprogramming. And that's just sort of as a human, right? Having the human experience. But then there's that second level of the spiritual realm where then we start to, like I was saying earlier, go within. And what does freedom look like on that level?
And then it's interesting when you say going deeper. I wonder if there is such a thing at that level when we no longer seek anything, when we are satisfied and we embrace everything, life as it is, and what it looks like in every moment. I'm wondering if there is any deeper level to go when this unconditional love sets in.
I like that, because that's sort of the duality, right? You're seeking the spot where you don't need to seek anymore.
Right. Yeah. yes. Yeah. When you embrace everything, as exactly as it is.
I do find that deep in meditation. I think that that's one of the gifts that I found in meditation, that there is this deeper level of calm and peace that I find in that state where I do stop seeking. There is that release, that letting go. So, yeah.
During meditation, have you found that kind of peace without meditating or outside of the state of meditation or the meditative state?
I guess, yeah. Sometimes when I'm in nature and it's really quiet and I feel at one with, by the water, I can watch the birds and feel as if I'm there, almost as if I'm flying too. I have those moments of, it's almost like a feeling of transcendence, like transcending what it feels like to be locked in this human body. And I can really get outside of myself. And I think those are the moments that I feel that deep calm and peace, like I do in meditation. Yeah.
I can relate to that. Another question or idea that I've been wondering is that everything seems to be a feeling. So even the feeling that being separated from that state of inner peace, that's a feeling. So everything is a feeling in a way of being free and not being free. It's almost the same. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, right, because you can find freedom we've seen so many stories like this where some people find freedom when they're in prison, right? The opposite. It's all about what our thoughts are about our circumstances, right? So you can be in the middle of the forest completely free, but I've had those instances where I'm having a panic attack because I'm in the forest alone. And it's my thoughts that are creating that feeling of I'm unsafe, I'm in a prison, versus, like I said, somebody who's incarcerated could feel completely free of all of the things that were imprisoning them on the outside of those walls. So it is all about our thoughts. And it's important to recognize, right, the power that our brain has over our human condition if we don't control it and use it for our benefit.
Yes, a billion times about the human brain creating all this, the feelings of separation, of anxiety, of everything really, a feeling of love, everything is being created in the brain from my perspective. I wonder also if it is possible to control that, or if the ultimate freedom comes from accepting that the brain is creating all these illusions, all these feelings.
I'm more in the camp of trying to bring awareness to it and accepting that it's happening, but also accepting my role in knowing that it's a choice and I can control that choice. If I feel like if I had just accepted the way that my mind was interpreting the world for, during my 20s and 30s, and I feel like I would be a completely different person now. Like it took a lot of hard work to take back control over, the hypervigilance, all of those saboteurs, all of the reactions to the trauma that I had been through as a child and things like that, to sort of take back my life from the way that my brain had been programmed, to really reprogram it.
Yeah. So you do believe in choice, in being able to choose. For some reason, that has been another interesting topic for me, that control, choice. I'm not sure if that we are choosing anything. It seems to me like life is doing what it does, and it feels like we are choosing, but it's just life being itself. it feels like it.
Yeah, because I know as a child, I always had these visions of who I would be and who I knew I could be. And when it wasn't working out that way, that was always sort of what I was holding on to. I knew there was more for me, and but maybe that's the way it was going to play out all along anyway, right? Like that was the story that I needed to be a character in.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if I believe in the reason in the sense of a designer, the universe kind of manipulating everything. I mean, it's energy, everything's energy. But I don't know about this linear plan. It seems like there's benevolence behind it all, that in the end, it always seems to go back to this space of unconditional love. It always does, but I have no idea why. It's incredible how that happens too, which means including everything, the pain, everything, the light, the darkness, everything is this happening, which is magical to me, being in a human body.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like everything, the common denominator for all of it. And it's so odd to say, like you said, like the pain and the darkness, when you reduce it down, it all comes back to love. I completely agree with that. Yeah. And that's what sort of makes me feel like, or strongly believe in some benevolent universe, energy, God, whatever name you use for it, that energy is a positive energy, a positive, unconditional love. Yeah.
You wrote the book, The Box, an invitation to freedom from anxiety. Talk to me about the main inspiration and intention of writing your book, Wendy.
Well, I had an anxiety, panic, and obsessive compulsive disorder for almost 40 years when I decided to ask the question, could someone who had struggled with mental illness for that long ever find freedom from it? Because as I said before, I knew there was something, I knew there was a life for me on the other side of my disorders. And so I started on this quest, and I called it my own hero's journey, right? To save myself. And I knew I would have to write my way through it to process what I was going through. And I did a lot of different therapies on my own, exposure therapy, a lot of meditation, going back to heal open wounds and, really learn about and discover where the anxiety started. I had my first panic attack when I was just 6 years old. So just to understand where that came from and how it metastasized over time. So the book really lays out the process that I went through to, like I said, go back and find those open wounds and heal them and do a lot of reparenting. And then what it looked like as I was coming out of that and what my life looks like now, having found that freedom. And honestly, at the beginning, I started writing just to, like I said, to process what I was going through, because I didn't know if I would actually find that freedom. I didn't know. I had no guarantee of what this journey would look like or where I would end up. So at first, the book was really just me saving myself. And then about halfway through, I saw this process unfolding that I thought I could share with other people that were struggling the same way I did, and just felt like this was a way to go back and help people that were on that same journey that I was.
So a question that I have for you, I'm not sure if I can ask you this question because I'd love the listeners to read your book, to find out the journey, of course, of your healing journey. But let's see if I can ask you this question. What have you found that made you finally call freedom from anxiety? What was the main, let's say, component? What would you say healed you from anxiety, if you can disclose that?
Yeah, sure. I would say first that it's important to know that I don't not having any anxiety anymore. That's not part of the human condition, right? There's a normal amount of anxiety in all of us, for good reason, for survival purposes. And I still have more anxiety than more people, no question. I still have panic attacks. The freedom comes from the fact that it no longer controls me. I'm not afraid of it anymore. And I live my life knowing that it will come and that I will survive and I will move through it. And at best, I will learn something new from it. I call it my superpower now because it really shows me. I used to close the doors when I felt anxiety because I thought that the trigger, I didn't want my anxiety triggered because I was so afraid of it. Now I welcome it. If something's giving me anxiety, I know that it's a place that I need to go. It's like it shines a light in outside of my comfort zone where my life is, lived in amazing ways now, in ways that I never would have even considered years ago. So that's really where the freedom comes from.
Would you call that acceptance of what is, of how your body, mind operate in the world? Would you call that acceptance or perhaps surrender?
Yeah. I think both in different ways. I think that there was a lot of acceptance. In my book, I think you can see that in a lot of different ways. There was an acceptance of what happened to me as a child. I think acceptance is part of forgiveness as well.
Yeah.
There's an acceptance of all of I thought I was broken, right? So there was such an internal critic that was constantly beating myself up. So accepting that this is a normal way to react based on what happened to me. It's not what's wrong with me, it's what happened to me. And this is a normal human reaction. So there's a lot of self-love is acceptance, right? So this book is a lot about self-love.
Yeah, self-love, self-compassion. Oh, I love those topics because it liberates us from so much. I actually call it unconditional self-love, the practice. It's accepting everything. We're not afraid to feel. Isn't that what it is, Wendy, in a way?
Yeah, it's so powerful to be able to feel negative emotion and know that it won't overtake you. I think so many of us buffer against that, right? And we eat and we drink and we overwork and we're running and running and running from feeling anything negative. And once we do it and realize that it won't destroy us, it's so empowering. The other side of that is like, well, what else can I do? If you can do that, you can do anything.
Do you believe in life after death or some kind of existence after the body?
Yeah, I do. Not the Catholic sense that I was
having.
But the more I meditated, especially after my mother passed like 4 years ago, and that was one of my biggest fears, one of my biggest sources of anxiety as a young child, was really ruminating on where I was before I was born and where I'm going when I die. And it was such an existential anxiety for me that overtook me a lot of the time. And now I've come to such a peaceful place around those thoughts that, you can never know, of course, but just having this really strong connection with how everything is connected and how we are all part of this energy, this light that is the universe. I don't feel like that's extinguished when we stop having a human experience. I think we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. And when I think about, that common denominator of love and emotion, and I wonder sometimes if this is just a way for a spiritual creature to have another way to experience, like you were saying, like those emotions, right?
I read this somewhere. You say avoiding triggers that provoke panic attacks is not a cure for anxiety, but an imperfect anxiety management strategy. So talk to me about the triggers. Talk to me about this. This is interesting. I never heard it this way.
I guess my triggers really started with things that would normally trigger anxiety, right? As a child, it was really, my home was volatile at times because of my mother's own untreated mental illness. So that was really the beginning of the triggers. And so I would try to make sure everything was perfect and that there were no triggers for her so that she wouldn't get triggered, and then that wouldn't trigger my own anxiety. So there was a lot of walking on eggshells and trying to make everyone happy and all of those things. And then once the anxiety became my biggest fear, really anything would trigger it. And I say, the wind blowing would trigger it. And that's actually true, because if the wind blows too hard, then I start to think of a storm and where will I be in the storm, and will I drown if there's too much rain, and will something blow and hit me in the head? Like I would have all these, I would be catastrophizing all of the time. So really everything would trigger a panic attack or just a sense of anxiety. So that's when really the walls of my world started closing in around me, because it was really, I could not have a human experience and not have anxiety triggered. Yeah. So avoiding them, over time, as I collected more ways to avoid them, I realized how tiny my world had become. So it becomes painfully obvious that is not a way to productively deal with your anxiety.
Yeah. Wow.
It's really to go out and have it be triggered as much as possible so that you retrain your brain to understand that it's not, the anxiety won't kill you. Right. Yeah. And then the more you become accustomed to those things that are triggering it, and the more comfortable you are in those scenarios, the less anxious you'll be, the fewer panic attacks you'll have.
So true. That makes a lot of sense to me. Is that what you call exposure therapy?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You keep exposing yourself and you create new neural pathways, right? Because my inside world, the narrative that I had playing in my head was always the worst case scenario. And I thought about it so much that those became my real memories, right? Because our brain doesn't know the difference.
Right. Yeah.
So my real memories I had to recreate those memories in some reality, not just in what was those catastrophes that were happening in my head.
Something you mentioned in your book, something interesting too, you said about psychiatrists and self-help books and how they lack this personal experience and personal connection. Talk to me for a moment about that, Wendy.
Yeah, I know a lot of people with mental health issues or really benefit from psychiatrists. So I by no means want to diminish the benefit that they can provide. But for me personally, I struggled with finding, and it was a two-way street. I'll also say that I struggled finding somebody that I was comfortable being vulnerable with and exposing my thoughts to. I didn't think that what was happening inside of me was okay. I had never heard of it. I had never talked to anybody about it. I didn't have the vocabulary to even communicate it to a psychiatrist. Yeah. For instance, the first time I saw one, I was in college and I had just called a suicide hotline and knew that I should probably go see someone. And the first thing they said was, well, how can I help you? And I have no idea how they can help me. And, then saying, well, what's going on with you? Right. And I was convinced that if I told them, well, I didn't know what was going on with me. At that point, I was deeply depressed and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know how to find my way out of that state. Yeah. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know how to communicate it. So, and I thought that if I tried to, that there would be consequences. And that was true for me along the way too, where I thought I would be removed from school, or as I became an attorney, I had to hide how I felt all of the time. I was afraid to really expose it to anyone. So that crossed over. And of course, that's not giving psychiatrists the tools that they need to help you. Right. So,
yeah, the compound fear. And then, hiding doesn't help. It's quite the opposite. Yeah, I love what you call exposure therapy, because that's what we need to expose the feelings. I love what you say. I think it's towards the end. I'm not sure where in your book. I can honestly say that I am the strongest I have ever been. I can honestly say that I love myself, every part, even the crazy thoughts, because now I know where they come from. That's a powerful statement, especially the love myself part. Every part of you, that's where we need to be. I mean, that we never left that place, but But somehow we have the feeling that we do, and then going back, it's the healing journey, like I call it. I love the chapter 2 called The Soul Food, chapter 30, where you talk about self-love again. As I shifted my focus to my mental health, becoming more self-aware, I began managing my weight with self-love. Wendy, thank you for that message. We need to hear that over and over, be reminded. So we are almost at the end of the interview, and I do have a few more questions for you, the ending questions. Would you like to add anything or read a passage from your book or any chapter?
I didn't prepare a chapter. I do have the book right here, but I don't want to take too much of your time. No, I love that last one. I think that eating disorders, I will just touch quickly on that. So many people with eating disorders also struggle with anxiety or some other mental illness. I think that you talk about the dance all the time. Those two things dance very well together because, we're trying to destroy ourselves in some way because we find something not acceptable, right, about ourselves. And it is that coming back home and that self-love and that acceptance of whatever our human experience may be at that time, that we can then start to, cultivate that relationship with ourselves. Yeah. Rather than using those things like eating and body image and what have you to, as a way of destruction.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say it that way, because we find something that is not in our minds, it's a thought, a story that's not acceptable, then we try to destroy that by destroying ourselves, right? It is sad and also part of the human experience. And then a lot of times I wonder why some of us get to understand, to see clearly all this and kind of do what you do and just come out here and just talk about it and give light to it. I wonder what it takes really for some of us never do that, never get out of that space. And that's why I guess I question the idea of choice. It seems like life is just doing what it does.
Well, I think true power lies in vulnerability. And it has for me, like you used the word surrender earlier. And I think that surrendering to what is and what we're feeling and being vulnerable and speaking our truth, all of that really is where I've found my power again, really.
So I have this last questions for you, the ending questions. I guess I have too many. Let me ask you this one. How do you define success these days? What is to be successful to you?
Success for me now is a sense of peace and cultivating connection in my life. If something is stealing my peace or jeopardizing it, then the price is too high. And I really set up healthy boundaries and protect myself in that area. And then the more connection, the more deep, loving, true, authentic connection I can make with people while I'm here and with myself, those are where I find my successes.
What is another word for healing?
Freedom. Yeah. Healing feels like freedom for me.
What are 3 things about life you know for sure as of this moment?
3 things.
Yeah.
That I know for sure. That love is the most important thing, that we all have everything we're searching for within us. And a really good night's sleep can heal a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a good one too. True. So true. And laughter. It's healing, isn't it? I mean, it's just, it feels like liberation too, in a way, in a small way. Thank you so much again, Wendy, for your presence, your wisdom, and how fun you are. And you're probably not even aware of that, but meaningful spiritual fun.
Thanks.
So before we say goodbye, where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
So my website is Wendy Tamis, Tamis Robbins with 2 B's, .com. And my book that just became a bestseller this week on Amazon is on there. You can buy it there. And also my coaching programs, I coach one-on-one. And I also have corporate wellness programs that I put on. And there's more information on my website about that. And I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, all under Wendy Tamis Robbins.
Wonderful. I'll have the link on your podcast profile. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a delight.
Bye for now, Wendy.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Wendy Tamis Robbins and her work, please visit wendytamisrobbins.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.